on the air. Hello and welcome to another episode of Rhenzu's Gaming Adventures, Hellblade Edition. This one is just a commentary, which is not something that I ever do. So it should be fun and interesting. Gosh, how do we want to start? We just want to start with talking about the game itself, right? So, what are your thoughts on the gameplay itself?
Well, I like the running around part and then switching into the fighting sections. There are a few movement things that kind of bother me, like not being able to run faster on your own.
Oh yeah, the speed cap on her jogging is so annoying.
And then where you can't climb things. Invisible barriers, those sorts of things, they've always bothered me and they always will.
Yeah. I really like the combat system because it's really simple, but it lets you do some complex things like breaking guards or and bouncing between enemies that you can't necessarily see.
Yeah, and if you parry in a certain timing, then you'll parry those behind you. That's pretty neat. I like how if you need to dodge after you've clicked the attack button, then you'll dodge rather than finishing the attack.
Yeah, canceling attacks is nice. I think my favorite part about the entire game is their binaural audio, and that is a big part of their combat system too.
Yeah, the voices are really fun.
I like how it's weird to say that I like that the way the voices interact with each other, because people who are actually experiencing that I'm sure don't. But as a game element, it's really entertaining to have these voices that are arguing with each other. It's kind of like Deadpool.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anybody who actually suffers from psychosis or psychotic episodes of any kind would really enjoy things that they go through, but definitely from a gamer perspective, it makes it quite interesting.
What happens if she dies? Do we die? Oh gosh. Yeah, it's the binaural audio isn't just the voices though, because it's like when you're close to the beaches and the water is and you're like, you know, stomping around in the water and the water's crashing up on the shore. It's all recorded in like this 360-degree space. And as long as you're wearing your headphones, it's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm at the beginning again, and I'm in the part where she just kicked the log away, and I walked up, and it's dark and windy, and the voices are freaking out about her not running. And I'm just turning my camera, and it's changing the way it sounds in the headset.
Yeah, that's the binaural audio is by far the best thing about this game. Honestly,
I would have to agree.
Yeah. I think just about. It almost seems like they built the entire game around that one system.
Yeah, it seems like it. Everything associated with anything you do in this game, um, whether it's the voices just talking to you or the fighting mechanics, it all is very three-dimensional audio, which is really awesome. I wish more games would incorporate that.
Oh yeah.
It seems like it's a fairly new concept, and the way that they went about it is intriguing.
I think the only reason that it even came up as an idea was because they were trying to find ways to represent those voices that are in her head.
Yeah. And another thing about the audio is when they're whispering and you're wearing your headset, like me, I have an Afterglow headset that you can change like the bass and the treble and stuff like that, for those of you who don't know. When you have the bass setting on to where it amplifies the bass the most, they will whisper and it will feel like they're actually talking in your ear because the speakers move the air in the headset enough that it feels like there's actually
gosh. Oh, that could be super freaky.
That's how I played this whole game, was with bass boost.
Yeah, I think that's the setting on my headset too. I know that there are I have the theme, and so the theme is kind of freaky because it's whispering all the time.
Yeah.
There was even a bit where Fergus was here, and he was playing Elite Dangerous, and and he thought his game was whispering at him because of my theme on my PlayStation. It was funny. All right. So one of the other features of this is the way they integrated live action into things. And I mean, it works. It's interesting, but I'm not really a huge fan of it. It's kind of weird.
What do you mean?
Well, it's just kind of like when Druth is talking to you and stuff. Like after you crash through, I shouldn't say things like that, because spoilers. Spoiler,
Yeah,
you crash through things.
You did a whole section of the whole game, so they've already had spoilers.
That's true, but maybe they're watching this first. I know it's the last video in the playlist, but maybe they're watching this first.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
But like, so it wasn't just Druth. It was like Dillion, whatever his name is.
Dillion.
And her mother, and her father, they all pop up as
Bases.
These live action videos that they've spliced into the game, and it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, it kind of pulls away from the movement of the game, and focuses on their face, which is weird.
Also, Dillion, like the other characters, they have like period specific clothes, but there's at one point where I am certain that he's got like a t-shirt on in his pop-up when he's on the screen.
Well, they did have shirts.
Well, I know they had shirts, but I mean like
a basic cotton t-shirt.
Yeah, like a modern processed t-shirt, and it's really funny.
I didn't notice that.
I might be wrong, because all you can really see is the V-neck of it, but it looks like a modern shirt to me.
Yeah, and back then they were either V or square.
Yeah.
Because it was easier than trying to sew together a circle. By hand.
one of the so we should move forward a little bit. One of the things that people didn't like a lot of the reviews before, because most of the reviews now are really good, but a lot of the reviews before were like saying it was a boring game, and that was because of the image puzzle system. People found the combat repetitive because you're limited to like three kinds of attacks, but the main thing was the image puzzles where you're opening all the doors. Everybody thought those were really boring, and I thought they were unique and fun and interesting because I enjoyed walking around the map trying to find those runic symbols.
Yeah, and the way that I was looking at it, because I already knew the
angle about the mental health.
Yeah. It kind of helped me, as someone who's actually studied that kind of stuff very little. It helped me understand like why they do the things that they do, and it felt like I was actually in that process.
Yeah.
Like the world isn't actually this way, but because their brain is messed up, they think it is, and they go through these extreme lengths to make it seem whole.
Yeah, and I was kind of like that too. The whole time I was really into it and I was really enjoying it, and then I was reading these reviews and people didn't get that it was like reflecting the mental health issues. It was just they were looking at it like it was just another game mechanic, and they're like, eh.
Yeah. And as far as the combat being repetitive, you could say that on just about every game that's not Deadpool or DMC, because DMC has that gun that has 999 or 666 variations. So, you know, I mean,
Ninja Theory
any game you play is going to be repetitive.
Ninja Theory though is well known for having diverse combat experiences in their games. They even did the newer DMC. So
yeah, but regardless of that, as you progress in the game, because the fighting's not really the focus. It's the psychosis.
That's
what a
true.
lot of people, I think, missed.
That's true. I think people were expecting a more robust combat system because it was a Ninja Theory game.
Yeah. It's more, they took that skill that they have and applied it to the outside world of the game more so than the combat, and because that's really where the focus for this one is. And I don't know if a lot of people really understand. Because, I mean, they used Unreal Engine to make this game, which has amazing graphics.
Oh, yeah. The graphics are spectacular. Even just on the normal PlayStation 4. Like, the Pro has better graphics. And apparently, unless you have an amazing PC rig, the game is intensely demanding on PC. So
yeah, I can see that because of all the graphic elements.
It doesn't really look like they were concerned with polycounts when they were building things. For one thing.
No, I don't think they were, because everything is super detailed. They were like, yeah, fuck it. We'll have a crap ton just because we want it to look good.
Yeah, the graphics are really nice. They did.
Shadows consistent. There's even reflection in the water, because I'm at the shore again, and I'm just standing in the water, walking around, and I have a shadow and a reflection like you normally would. The water ripples, and as you go in deeper, it splashes, and it's really good. And a lot of people, I think, miss all this stuff because they don't look at games in depth. They look only at play.
Yeah, and that brings me to one of my favorite features of the game, the photo mode. I went nuts with the photo mode, and I took a shit ton of pictures.
Like 1,000 pictures. I haven't even taken one yet, and he's taken like 1,000.
Oh gosh, I went through the whole game, and I like, oh, pause, take some pictures. I like being able to pause combat and take pictures in combat, but like the photo mode actually is like it actually works the way it's supposed to. The aperture and the focal distance and the zooming, they actually work. And other games that I've played that have these photo modes, like the aperture and focus stuff, they kind of work, or aperture doesn't work at all, and this works exactly the way it's supposed to. And I really like their photo mode.
Yeah. I like the fact that you can take the characters out of the picture just so that you can have a nice backdrop. And just take environmental pictures, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I haven't really played around with photo mode yet. I'm going to in this playthrough just because. There are clipping and stuff like that issues with the graphics, but
there is some things that they didn't really like when they were doing their cutscenes. I think they forgot that they made this photo mode because there are some issues where weapons aren't attached to bosses, or bosses are like 3 feet away when you pause,
or you just go through a general cutscene and Senua's not there, but the boss is dying.
So
or your sword doesn't exist in combat. It's in your sheath.
So there are some things, and I think most of them are pretty directly related to photo mode being incorporated into the game. It's really funny. I can't show them. I can't show it in this video, but I showed you the photo of Hell and the sword just like 3 feet beside her. But yeah, this is photo mode is a lot of fun, and the binaural is a lot of fun. And the photo mode wouldn't be as much fun if the game wasn't as detailed as it is.
Yeah, it's like taking all the pictures and video that people used to do in Halo 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That was so much fun back then, and this just kind of brings that back.
Yeah. So we know that she's a Celtic character, and she's traveling through these Norse stories that Druth has told her on this quest.
Based out of England, as well. So it's based in 8th and 9th century AD. BC? BC. 8th and 9th century BC.
Yeah.
No.
the reason I'm
Yeah,
bringing
no.
it up is because there are quite a few people actually that are like, this isn't historically accurate.
It totally
And
is.
and even
If you've
one of the reasons that people, and I'm sure this was a guy who said this, but it's like one of the reasons they didn't think it was historically accurate was because the main character is a smaller, skinny Celtic woman. And he's like, oh, there's no this tiny woman could never be a warrior.
except they were. In a lot of cultures, women could not be warriors. In the Celtic and Norse, they would fight side by side with men.
Which I know and you
That's
know,
why.
but
That's why in Norse there were shield maidens, and in Celts they were either swordswomen or spearwomen or whatever. It didn't matter. They did the same thing the men did.
yeah.
Yes, women are generally physically smaller than guys. But if you use your body like you're supposed to and not focus on one muscle group, then you can be just as much a warrior as anybody else.
Yeah, I just that I bring up the lore and stuff because people have this perception that the game isn't historically accurate, and all the Norse mythology that they have incorporated, and the characters are, to my knowledge of stuff, they're all really fairly accurate. I mean, even the environment is based on an actual place. So
Yeah. There are a few environmental things, like the giant wooden tower in the backdrop. That wasn't a thing. That would take way too many lifetimes. They didn't care.
well, that's just one of those part of her delusion things, you know.
Yeah, it's purely story connected. It's not necessarily historical. As far as being historically accurate with the religions and the Norse and the Celts, it most definitely is.
Yeah.
Because both the Celts and the Norse had very similar religions and religious traditions. And without going into too much, they would raid each other. The Norse did it more than the Celts did because the Celts were less nomadic.
Yeah, the raiding and pillaging was more part of the Norse culture than anything else. So.
Yeah, and the Celts didn't really travel by sea. They mostly did land until they started interacting with the Vikings more often, and then they started moving on to seafaring. And when they did, that was when they started going to places like Ireland.
Yeah. The topic about the giant the Hell Tower kind of brings us back into the conversations we were having about you know, what's real, what isn't real, and how does the game represent mental health.
Yeah.
Particularly her psychosis. Because she's suffering from more than just psychosis. They have her described as suffering from depression, PTSD, and psychosis, which is a whole lot of really intense things for one person to be dealing with.
Indeed. As far as the psychosis goes, it's definitely differentiating fact from fiction. which a lot of those people cannot do, especially if it's visual or audio related.
I don't think the game even makes an effort to distinguish between what's real and what isn't.
The only things that really seem like they are less likely to exist are the bosses.
Yeah, that.
As
so,
far as what could be fake.
Yeah.
And of course the Hell Tower. But everything else, and the broken bridges and stuff like that, that's fairly obvious. But the Vikings, they were a very real threat back then, and in her mind, they come up as smoke and darkness, and they could have actually been a foe that could have killed her, whereas in her mind it might also just be curse or smoke and darkness, and you can't really differentiate that.
Yeah.
So they take the things that are most definitely likely to be true and obscure them, and then they take the things that could most definitely be fake and make them seem as realistic as possible.
I saw someone described the first two bosses. What were their names?
Cert and starts with a V.
Yeah, it had a cool name, cool bird name. Anyway, I saw things that those two were actually like they're supposed to be, yeah, Valravn. They're supposed to be like, they're described as gods, but they're supposed to be actually like tribal leader things, like tribal leader type people. Yeah. That was somebody's assertion, was that they're actually, group leaders and not like these gods. And they actually could be, because they look like people, for the most part, dressed up as these, mythical type creatures.
Yeah, and they did those things back then. They would... every warrior culture did that, to instill fear upon their enemies.
Yeah. And
it just... A lot of times the Celts and the Vikings would tie bones to their outfits and stuff like that.
It just...
to make them seem more menacing.
Yeah. It just loops back into the for the player, trying to differentiate what's real and what isn't, because we know Senua's character isn't trying to differentiate that. As far as her character is concerned, everything is real.
Yeah. The voices in her head, everything.
Which actually leads to some really intense sequences, like with having to stay in the light when you're running from Grammar. Yeah.
Because Grammar's the sword.
Yeah, it's Garmr. Garmr.
Yeah.
I always want to say the R first.
Garmr.
But I think the game did a really amazing job of showing people what the experience would be like to have, multiple voices conflicting with each other, and some of them being helpful and some of them trying to mislead you, and what it's like to hallucinate things that can't be real.
Yeah. And the ones that are like, oh my gosh, she's about to die. She's not going to die.
What is she doing? She's lighting the torch. It's not gonna help. Yeah, I I think they totally succeeded in what they were trying to do.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I just got to the first rune section, and for somebody like us who's not mentally ill in any way, as far as I'm aware, you would just be like, oh, there's a door with a painting on it, let me just go through that. But for her, it's like this magical rune is stopping this door from being able to be opened, and she has to find something that matches that rune to unlock it.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, that's the thing about those that I really liked, and that's the biggest point that everybody else hasn't.
Yeah,
is
they
just
don't
the
like
opening the doors.
Because if you watch the people that have gone through that, they actually do make those markings, and they do think these things have power. And it shows you in this game what living like that would be like.
Yeah. I just triggered a cutscene to kind of give people an idea of what we're talking about. So it's the short one that brings up the sword trials.
Oh.
A sword that can slay gods. Its name is Grammar.
But yeah, they did a really good job, and I think this is the best game I've played in a long time.
Yeah, it's short and sweet, but you know, there's a lot more to it than just the gameplay, because if you focus only on that, you're missing 90% of what's here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think people try to look at it too cut and dry and miss significantly more than what they were attempting to portray.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. I think that's the biggest issue people are having, is they don't understand the game. And I watched the Psychosis video, the featurette that they made for the game. And I highly recommend anybody watching this and anybody who plays the game watch the Psychosis video, because they talk about the aspects of the mental illness and stuff that they tried to incorporate. But they also talked about people who came to test it multiple times during their development, and they got to a point where they described the way players described the game was that they couldn't tell that it was you know, hallucinations and different kinds of things. And I think maybe they did it just a little bit too well.
Yeah, considering how much people seem to have missed, I would have to say that definitely very likely.
Well, given that we play a bunch of these third-person RPGs that are story-driven in fantasy environments, you know, we're kind of used to that kind of thing, and then so when we go and play it in this, we just kind of, you know, bounce over it.
Yeah, I have to agree.
But yeah, I think that's everything we have to talk about this game. I think we both agree that this game is really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you get Garmer or Grammar or whatever the sword is called.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks it's broken because Drew told her it was broken, and she has to go through these sword trials to fix it.
Yeah.
And you can tell just by looking at it that it is a whole sword.
Yeah.
But she doesn't understand that because she is so focused on the story that she thinks it's broken and has to be reforged.
Well, in that bit right after there where Druth is explaining that she needs to go do the sword trials, he starts that off by saying it looks whole, but it's actually broken. So, yeah.
And she has so much faith in what he has told her since he helped her survive whatever endeavor in the woods almost killed her, that she trusts his word implicitly.
Oh, yeah. The side bits of the story about her being a Gelt and stuff. That I loved all the story details. You know, having
going out on her soul-searching endeavor.
Yeah.
To find herself.
I really like it's not something that's important to the storyline, but it adds to her character and it adds to the way she interacts with things, and it's they crafted their story very well, and I appreciate all the details that they put into it.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely an intriguing game, but you have to be able to look at it from all the aspects rather than one or two.
Yeah. So, how would you rate the game? Like on a scale? 1 to 10.
Yeah, like a Game Con or whatever.
Yeah.
Gameplay rating. The gameplay, as far as movement and whatnot, I would say is about a 7. And that's being kind of generous just because the basic movement is kind of bland.
Well, yeah, and like same combat
she moves
moves
slowly,
over and over.
And it's a linear, path-driven world.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Combat, I would say, is just combat. I actually enjoyed it because as a martial artist, it brought in a lot of aspects that you see in life, like with the people being behind you and not being able to stop doing certain things or going through a character because you dodge.
Yeah. I really liked the circle, the guard break thing. I feel like that had more animations to it, because like square and triangle, they're the same like 3 and the same 3 hits and rotations over and over again. But like with the basic melee, you had punches and shoulder bashes and kicks, multiple
and
different
knees.
kicks. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to say the fighting is like an 8, because even though there's not a whole lot to the fighting, it's just constantly attack or guard or dodge. Okay, whatever. But that's really all you have in life anyway.
Yeah.
It's not possible to make a game that can fight the way that I would fight. So considering that, they did really well. There's 8-way directional attacks. You can't really control it. She just does it as she flows.
Yeah.
She'll attack from the bottom and move up, and then to the side, and then move back down to the bottom. They did well with the way that she moves. And then you can chain all of the movements. I don't think a lot of people really started getting into that. But once you get Garmer and you hold the triangle button, you can just sit there and hold it and dodge. And then you can unleash it and then chain into, say, a weaker attack or a melee. And I feel like there's a lot of combination that you can do with just those 3 buttons that a lot of people miss.
Yeah, that's like the guy who was trying to attack the shield-based enemy with just the square.
Yeah, I'm gonna light attack you. 1, 2, parried. 1, 2, parried.
Oh, dude, I dashed at one of those guys, and I went to like do a leaping triangle or something, and like he crouches, he hits you like in the lower stomach with the shield and throws you over him.
Oh man. Yeah, they never got the opportunity to do that to me, because usually they would just parry me and then shield bash me in the face.
Yeah, I think it was unique to that I was doing a charging attack, but I mean, yeah, the combat there's a lot of elements to the combat that people just missed.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah,
moving on, because that's two categories.
And then overall gameplay, as a rating, overall gameplay, I'd have to say this is like a 9 out of 10. Just because it's not centered around the combat. It's centered around what's going on in her brain. And
Right.
that is an amazing concept that nobody has incorporated into a video game that I know of or have played ever.
Yeah, I totally agree. I haven't played a game like that, so. So I guess what we got 7, 8, 9. So I think it's safe to say the overall score is an 8.
Yeah, this game is fantastic. Graphics are amazing. It's Unreal Engine. The gameplay,
I think that's
in my opinion,
I think
is
that's all you have to
phenomenal.
say about the graphics is powered by Unreal.
For those who don't know, Unreal is phenomenal. But yeah, I would say this game overall is about an 8 out of 10.
Alright.
If you don't like the puzzles and all that kind of stuff, then it's not really for you. But if you're actually interested in what goes on in these people's minds, then this game is...
Exactly what you're looking for.
It's amazing.
Yeah, alright. So I think that wraps up our commentary and what we think about what other people had to say about the game. So thanks for watching. I'm Rhenzu.
And I'm Wolfen.
Good night.